Hey there, today we're going to be taking a look at a comparison of the B-Link SER5 Max and the B-Link SER6. Now this is going to be a Ryzen 7 5800H versus a Ryzen 5 6600H. The key differentiators here really being the fact that those two chips are vastly different. One is rocking 8 Zen 3 cores and 8 Vega cores, while the other system is rocking 6 Zen 3 Plus cores and 6 RDNA 2 cores. So there is an architecture difference here in terms of the iGPU, not so much on the CPU side. There were some IPC uplifts, but they are very single digit, and most of the gains really ended up coming from just an increased clock speed for the 6000 series. Really, all the gains that were made for the 6000 series were just from efficiency standpoints. But that was pretty much just used up for increasing the clock speed. But that does mean that there is a pretty drastic difference in terms of the CPU performance here. So now the big question here is whether or not RDNA 2 is really enough to make up for the deficit in clock speed core count against what is essentially the best implementation of Vega you could possibly find. So let's see how they actually compare in 2023. So starting off this gaming comparison here, you could see Starfield running at 1080p with the lowest in-game graphics settings, but we are using FSR at its most aggressive setting, that is pretty much at a 50% resolution scale. Neither system is really producing a very playable experience here, but it does become very clear that the 5800H is actually taking a pretty noticeable lead in comparison to the 6600H. Now both suffer in the 1% lows, so neither will give a truly great gaming experience, but it's definitely interesting results. Now moving on to the next game, here we have Lies of P. A very interesting title because on most systems that I've tested it on, it performs pretty well, but it seems to have these very odd 1% low issues that I can't really seem to resolve on any of these mini PCs. I was hoping that the 6600H being on a more recent driver might come with a fix in relation to this, but it really doesn't seem to be the case. And with that being said, that means is that while both systems produce very nice FPS averages, with the 6600H taking the lead there, both seem to suffer in the 1% lows to a degree that might make this a very not enjoyable experience for a lot of people. Now, the next game that I took a look at, of course, was Payday 3. This running at the lowest in-game graphics settings, and again, FSR making a showing here. But unfortunately, neither system is really able to get to a very enjoyable experience. But we do see, again, the 5800H taking the lead, specifically in the 1% lows, which does make the overall experience far more playable, but a very, very shocking result. Another even more surprising result is Forza Motorsport. It actually just did not even end up running on the 6600H. It just continued to give me this error. Nothing that I tried really would get it to work in comparison to the 5800H, which ran it perfectly fine. And what's interesting is that it is 2 driver releases behind at this point. So very, very odd outcome there for sure. Now, Assassin's Creed Mirage did actually end up running on both systems, and it is running with the lowest in-game settings, and again, FSR making another showing here. Really, 2023 was a year full of FSR just being adopted practically everywhere, and has had a pretty nice outcome on these lower-end systems, because now a lot of them become very playable in modern titles, though you do sacrifice some visual quality. It's better than how it used to be, where you would have to just drop the native resolution to something extremely low. But here again, we see the 5800H take a pretty noticeable lead, and it overall leads to a better gaming experience. So what did we learn from all this? Well, it becomes very clear why the SER6 got discontinued with the Ryzen 5 model, and it was pretty much just replaced with the SER5 Max. The upgrade to RDNA 2 just does not seem to really make up for the vastly reduced core count. Now, it's 6 RDNA 2 cores versus 8 Vega based cores, but some of the biggest performance uplifts for RDNA 2 came from the architecture upgrade, but with that architecture upgrade also came vastly increased clock speeds. The 660M really seems to be such a cut down chip, just in terms of its maximum clock speed and the amount of cores that it has. And especially considering that the DDR5 RAM in here isn't exactly the highest spec since it was so early on in the release, it all culminates to essentially a sometimes better but surprisingly sometimes worse experience than the previous gen Vega iGPU. And as you saw with a lot of these brand new titles, there was a pretty noticeable difference in overall performance. And that's even with an older driver. But I think it really just cements the fact that the SER5 Max right now is just the best mini PC on the market. But I'll catch you guys next time.